Right. Well, my name is James S. I'm a alcoholic. My sobriety date is July 27th, 2017. And by the grace of my higher power, my God, I will have 8 years next month, um, which is something that I never really thought was possible for someone like me. Um, and I want to start out by thanking the members of this group for allowing me the opportunity to be of service and allowing me the opportunity to be sober one more day and translate.
థ్యాంక్ యూ. ఆయన పేరు జేమ్స్ ఎస్ అండి. ఆయన ఒక త్రాగుబోతు. ఆ, ఆయన సొబ్రైటీ డేట్ వచ్చి జూలై 27, 2017. సుమారుగా 8 ఏళ్ళ సొబ్రైటీ ఉంటుంది వచ్చే నెలతోటి. ఆ, దానికి ఆయన కృతజ్ఞతలు చెప్పుకుంటున్నారు. మనం ఈ మీటింగ్ కి పిలిచినందుకు కూడా కృతజ్ఞతలు చెప్తున్నారు. ప్లీజ్ గో హెడ్.
I want to start out by saying this is such a beautiful meeting. It reminds me of a passage in the fourth edition. There's a forward to the fourth edition of the Big Book, and it's page Roman numeral 24, and on the bottom it says, "Modem to modem or face to face, AA speak the language of the heart in all its power and simplicity." And it's just such a beautiful thing to see these words come to life and in action. So I just wanted to re-emphasize how grateful I am to be here. And you can translate if you'd
థ్యాంక్
like.
యూ. ఇది మన మీటింగ్ చాలా నచ్చిందంటే, ఎందుకంటే బిగ్ బుక్ 4వ ఎడిషన్ లో, అంటే మనది తెలుగులో 3వ ఎడిషన్ వరకే ఉంది. 4వ ఎడిషన్ లో ముందు మాట కింద రాస్తారు. లాస్ట్ లో చివరిలో ఏం చేస్తారంటే మోడెం టు మోడెం, అంటే మోడెం అని ఉండేది కదా ఇంతకుముందు ఇంటర్నెట్ కి. సో సో అలాగా కనెక్షన్ కూడా మనం చేసుకోవచ్చు శుభ్రంగాని. సింపుల్ ప్రోగ్రామ్ ఇది, ఎలాగ చేసుకున్నా పనిచేస్తుంది. అది ఈ మీటింగ్ నిరూపిస్తుంది అంటున్నాం. ప్లీజ్ గో హెడ్.
Right. So, I grew up in Oklahoma in the United States, and you know, I always had this feeling like I was separate from the world. Like this, I had this void, and I never knew where that came from. I didn't have a language for what I was going through. So I always sought a solution for that. And when I turned 14, I had my first drink. And I didn't get drunk with my first drink, but I did have this sense of belonging. I had this sense that I finally fit in, that I was part of the world again. And from that moment on, I I fell in love. There's no other way to explain it. I completely fell in love with the way that it made me feel. The effect produced by alcohol, it won me over at that moment. Translate if you want.
సో నేను ఓక్లహోమా స్టేట్ నుంచి వచ్చానండి. నాకు ఎప్పుడు చిన్నప్పటి నుంచి కూడా ఏదో నేను వేరు, ఆ బిలాంగింగ్ ఉండేది కాదు. అంటే కలియక ఉండేది కాదు వేరే వాళ్ళతోటి. ఆ సో నాకు ఆల్కహాల్ పరిచయం అయ్యాక మొత్తం ప్రపంచంతో కలియక ఉన్నట్టు అనిపించేది. చాలా ఏంటంటే ప్రేమలో పడిపోయింది నేను మందుతో. ఎందుకంటే నన్ను నా నా నుంచి వేరు చేసి ఇతరులతో కలిసేలాగా చేసింది అని చెప్తున్నా. ప్లీజ్ గో హెడ్.
So from that moment on, I kept searching for that. I kept searching for that same solution that I had finally found for my problem, which was a lack of unity. And every weekend that I had the opportunity, I would go and try to find out how I was going to drink. Who could I find to buy me alcohol? Who could I find to be there with me and partake in this? And it was part of my high school career at the time, and I just kept searching for this and searching for this. And eventually, I finally graduate high school. I'm doing okay working. I was working a job where I was making food, and for some reason I kept finding opportunities to where I could drink. Like the job I had, we made food, but we were able to stay late after we closed so that we could drink the keg beer. You know, all the friends that I decided I was going to have, they were all people who drank and did the same things as me. So I kept putting myself in a position where I could live with this solution that I had finally found. Um, and you can translate like.
సో నేను తాగుడు ఎలాగంటే నాకు బాగా యూనిటీ ఇచ్చింది. తాగే వాళ్ళతోటే కూర్చునే. సో నేను ఆ అంటే ఎప్పుడు కూడా మొదలు పెట్టినప్పటి నుంచి కూడా నేను ఆ తాగే వాళ్ళని ఎత్తుక్కోవటం, తాగే పరిస్థితుల్ని కనిపెట్టుకోవటం, ఆ లేకపోతే ఏదో విధంగా ఆ లేకపోయినా పరిస్థితులు వాటిని క్రియేట్ చేసుకోవటం ఇలా వస్తూ వచ్చింది. నా ఉద్యోగం వచ్చేసరికి కూడా ఇలాగే చేస్తున్నాను. నేను ఏంటంటే ఆ అదే కుకింగ్ ఫీల్డ్ లో ఉంటాను. సో హోటల్లో కుకింగ్ ఫీల్డ్ లో మా మేము పని చేసే వాళ్ళందరం కూడా లేట్ గా ఉంటాం. సో అందరూ తాగుతారు. సో నేను ఎలాగో అలాంటి వాళ్ళకి అట్రాక్ట్ అయ్యాను, తాగే వాళ్ళకే అట్రాక్ట్ అయ్యాను. సో అలాగా ఆ తాగుడు నన్ను ఏదో కారణంతో చేత అలాంటి వాళ్ళకి అట్రాక్ట్ చేయించటం, లేకపోతే నేనేదో కారణాలతోటి తాగుడు వైపుకి వెళ్ళటం ఇలా జరుగుతూ ఉండేది. ప్లీజ్ గో హెడ్.
Right. So yeah, so I find myself after high school, I'm not sure what I'm going to do with my life, but I know that I like the freedom that I have now. I don't have to worry about going to school at this time, and I get to spend most of my time drinking and working. And for me at the time, I thought that was a great life. I really did. And then one night, I came to a near death experience. Um, I discovered something called what we call outside issues. This is a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, so I'm trying to limit it to my experiences with alcohol. But there was drugs in my story, and I had found situation where I thought I was going to die from these drugs. And when I came to, I decided I was going to go to college and do something with my life. I was going to escape from all these problems that were coming up, and just move away. So that's what I did. I enrolled for a university, and I moved to a town that was about 3 hours away from where I lived. And I went to the University of Central Oklahoma, and I majored in psychology. And I thought this was going to be a start for something brand new. I was going to go to this place, and I was going to meet all kinds of people and make all kinds of friends and have all kinds of connections. And I wasn't going to feel like I was left out or empty anymore. And so that's what I did. I went on this venture to discover what the world had to offer. Translate.
సో నేను ఇలాగా తాగుతూ ఇతర మాదక ద్రవ్యాలు కూడా చేశాను. ప్రతిది ఆల్కహాలిక్స్ అనానమస్ మీటింగ్ కాబట్టి దాని గురించి ఎక్కువగా మాట్లాడను. త్రాగుడికి సంబంధించిన అనుభవం పంచుకోవడానికి ప్రయత్నిస్తాను మన ట్రెడిషన్స్ ప్రకారం. కాకపోతే చేశాను అయితే కూడా నా కథ. సో చేసినప్పుడు ఆల్మోస్ట్ నియర్ డెత్ ఎక్స్పీరియన్స్ అంటారు. అంటే నువ్వు ఇంకా చచ్చిపోయావని నేను క్లినికల్ గా చెప్తారు, కాకపోతే మళ్ళీ నువ్వు తిరిగి వస్తావు. అంటే నువ్వు దాన్ని ఆల్మోస్ట్ చాలా ఉంటాయి, మీరు యూట్యూబ్ లో చూసుకుంటే నియర్ డెత్ ఎక్స్పీరియన్స్ లోనే బేసిక్ గా చచ్చిపోయాక నీకు ఎలా అనిపిస్తుందో అలాగ అనిపిస్తుంది. సో అలాంటి అనుభవం ఒకటి జరిగింది ఆ మానవ ద్రవ్యాల వల్ల. అందుకు నేనేం చేశాడంటే అది అయిపోయాక ఇలా ఇవన్నీ కాదు, నేను చాలా తప్పు చేసేస్తున్నాను, ఈ తాగుడు ఈ మానవ ద్రవ్యాలు ఏంటి, నేను కాలేజీకి పోతాను, చదువుకుంటాను, వీటి నుంచి దూరంగా వెళ్ళిపోతాను అని నిర్ణయించుకున్నా. ప్లీజ్ గో.
Well, see, I arrived at this college, at this university, and the problem was no matter where I went, there I was. So the first thing I do when I move to this new town, this new environment, is I seek all the solutions that got me through high school. I'm seeking people who drink. I'm seeking where to get alcohol, and how do I continue this behavior? You know, there's a story in the back of the big book, and it says one of the primary differences between an alcoholic and a non-alcoholic is that a non-alcoholic will change their behavior to meet their goals, whereas an alcoholic will change their goals to meet their behavior. And that's what I did. I changed my goals so that my behavior could continue on. Even though I thought I was getting away, I was moving to a new town, I was going to go to university and create a future. My goals shifted as soon as I got there so that I could continue to drink. I could continue to have the same type of people around me who were allowing me to drink. And I just when I first read that in the back of the book, I thought, man, that describes exactly what I was doing, and I just didn't notice it at the time. Um, anyways, I'm in the university. I'm going to classes. I'm excelling. I'm doing well, and I'm trying to hide the fact that I'm drinking from everybody. I'm trying to hide the fact that I'm partying outside of classes, and I'm even doing things like being a teaching assistant, a research assistant. Like I'm fully involved in the university. I want people to think that I'm someone special. The problem is that even if I wasn't someone special, I was going to lie to make them think I was someone special. So I got to a point where I was very good at manipulating and lying to people. And I didn't realize at the time, but I was getting really good at manipulating and lying to myself. So I did get to a point, like it says in the big book, where I couldn't differentiate the true from the false. I thought everything I was doing was normal and everyone else had a problem with me. Um, and at the time, my solution, which was alcohol, it wasn't working anymore. It wasn't making me feel as confident anymore. It wasn't making me feel like I mattered and I was part of the world. I was starting to feel the separateness again, like I wasn't united with anything at all. And so I found a girlfriend, and I thought that was going to help me. And I get into this relationship, and everything was going great for a little while. I felt connected. I felt a part of, and then we break up, and I can't handle it. I uh, I had made her my God at the time, and I didn't realize it. So I worshipped her. Everything she did, I made that my priority. Everywhere she went, I made it my priority. Everything she wanted, I made it my priority. And I didn't understand what I was doing at the time. So when our relationship ended, it was horribly bad.
లెట్ మీ ట్రాన్స్లేట్. థ్యాంక్ యూ. యా. సో నేను ఇప్పుడు ఈ కొత్త నగరానికి వచ్చాను కదా, సో అంతా బాగానే ఉంటది. ఇప్పుడు యూనివర్సిటీకి వెళ్తాను, లైఫ్ లో ముందుకు వెళ్తాను అనుకుంటూ వచ్చాను కొత్త నగరానికి. ఆ వీళ్ళ నుంచి అందరి నుంచి దూరంగా వెళ్ళిపోవాలి. కాకపోతే ఏంటంటే ఒకళ్ళు చెప్తారు ఏ మీటింగ్లో ఏంటంటే, మా త్రాగుబోతు అన్నవాడు, అదే త్రాగుబోతు కాని వాడు ఏం చేస్తాడంటే తన ప్రవర్తన మార్చుకుంటాడు తన లక్ష్యాలు చేరుకోవడానికి. కాకపోతే తాగుబోతు ఏం చేస్తాడంటే ప్రవర్తన మార్చుకోడు, లక్ష్యాన్ని మారుస్తాడు. ఆ, సో అలాగే నేను కూడా లక్ష్యాన్ని మార్చాను మళ్ళీ అక్కడికి వచ్చాక. యూనివర్సిటీ అనే లక్ష్యాన్ని మళ్ళీ ఎందుకు, కేవలం తాగడానికే, ఇలాంటి వాళ్ళతో తిరగడానికి. మళ్ళీ అక్కడ కూడా ఇలాంటి వాళ్ళతో తిరగటం మొదలు పెట్టాను. ఆ సో ఇవన్నీ అవుతుంటే మెల్లిగా ఏమైందంటే కొన్ని రోజులకి పని చేయటం ఆపేసింది. పెద్దగా ఏంటంటే స్టార్టింగ్ లో ఏంటంటే నేను చాలా ఇంపార్టెంట్, నేను ఒక స్పెషల్ పర్సన్ అలాగా చిత్రీకరించుకునేవాడు. అందరికి ఏదో మ్యానిపులేట్ చేసి అబద్ధాలు చెప్పి ఆ చిత్రీకరణ ఉండేది. ఆ మెల్లిగా ఏమైంది, నాకు అది పని చేయటం మానేసింది. నాకు నేను అబద్ధాలు చెప్పుకుంటున్నా, ఇదంతా నార్మలే కదా, కామనే కదా, అందరూ చేస్తున్నారు కదా అని నాకు నేను కూడా అబద్ధాలు చెప్పుకుంటున్నాను, నేను నార్మల్. సో ఇలాగా నడుస్తుంటే ఇంకా అంత ఏంటంటే ఇంత ముందు అనిపించే అంత బాగా అనిపించట్లేదు తాగుడు. సో ఏం చేశాను, గర్ల్ ఫ్రెండ్ని తెచ్చుకున్నా. ఇంకా గర్ల్ ఫ్రెండ్ని పూజించడం మొదలు పెట్టా. తనకి ఏం కావాలంటే అది, తనకి ఏం చేయాలంటే అది, ఎక్కడ తీసుకెళ్ళాలంటే అక్కడికి. సో తనని సెంటర్ చేసుకున్నా చాలా రోజులు. తర్వాత అది కూడా ఎక్కువ కాలం పని చేయలేదు అని చెప్తున్నారు. ప్లీజ్ గో.
So after that relationship ended and I found myself feeling empty and lost again, I decided the only course of action reasonable was to chug a bottle of whiskey. So that's what I did. I chugged a bottle of whiskey. And I at the time I started playing guitar, and I shattered this guitar on the wall, and I decided that I wanted to end my life. and I had attempted to do that, but luckily the stars aligned, and I had a friend who happened to walk into the situation when I was trying to hang myself, and he had saved my life. Um, after I started coming to, and the next day I realized that I can't face anybody. I couldn't go back to school, so I was pretty close to graduating. We needed 124 credit hours to complete with a bachelor's degree, and I ended up having 103, and I dropped out of university. And I couldn't go back. I couldn't face anybody because the truth started to come out about who I was, that I was partying all the time and I wasn't who I said I was. And all my lies and manipulations, they all started to catch up to me. And I was feeling empty and lost again. So what did I do? I moved away. I moved to another state. I moved to a state called North Dakota and tried to work a job up there away from everything. And like I said before, no matter where I went, there I was. And I found alcohol there. I found other things there, and I found people who like to drink there. So the problem just grew, and this pattern continued on for many years. I ended up moving away from that state and moving back to my hometown in my home state, and the problem followed me there also. And you can translate if you'd like.
Sure. సో ఏంటంటే ఆ గర్ల్ ఫ్రెండ్ తోటి సంబంధం విరిగిపోయింది. ఆ సంబంధం విరిగిపోయాక ఆ నాకు ఎలా అనిపించిందంటే ఇంకేముంది, ఫుల్ బాటిల్ తాగేసి ఏడు చేద్దాం అన్నట్టు మొత్తం ఫుల్ బాటిల్ అదే సొల్యూషన్ అనిపించింది. ఒక ఫుల్ బాటిల్ తాగేసాను. నా రూమ్ లో గిటార్ ఉంటే అది ఎరగొట్టేశాను. ఇంకా చచ్చిపోదాం అనిపిస్తుంది. ఇంకా చచ్చిపోదాం అనిపిస్తున్నప్పుడు కరెక్ట్ గా నేను, నా అదృష్టం ఏంటంటే కరెక్ట్ గా నేను ఊరేసుకునే టైంలో అప్పుడే నా ఫ్రెండ్ నా రూమ్ లోకి ఎంటర్ అయ్యాడు. ఆడ ఆపాడు దాన్ని. ఆ ఆపాక కొన్ని రోజులు అలాగే నడిచింది. మళ్ళీ ఇంకో కొత్త ప్లేస్కి వెళ్ళా. ఆ కొత్త ప్లేస్ లో కూడా ఇదే కదా. సో ప్లేస్ మారినా కథ మారలేదు అని చెప్తున్నారు. ప్లీజ్ గో హెడ్.
So I moved back to my hometown in my home state, and I find myself getting so far bad that nobody wants me around anymore. So I'm living out of a van that was a friend of mine's, and then I get wasted and mess that up, and then I'm living from hotel to hotel, from different places, just hopping from people's houses, trying to figure life out, and I'm not doing too well with it. And then I start getting in trouble legally. I start getting arrested over and over again. Um, and it was really strange, over a 3-year period, I start getting arrested, and I would get out, start drinking again, get arrested, go back to jail, and I'd sit there for a few months, and I would find peace in jail. I would find some type of peace that I never had before. I had a routine that I discovered where I was reading scripture, and I was working out, and people would come by once a week and read an AA book to us through what we call a bean hole. And a bean hole's where they would pass the food through. So I'd sit there in this jail cell, hanging out at the bean hole, listening to someone read the big book to me. And I didn't really understand what they were doing. I didn't understand anything about it. And I really didn't even care that they were reading the big book. I just wanted something different. When you're in jail, everything's the same all the time. And this pattern continued where I would get out, I would be okay for a little bit, and then I would think that, a drink wouldn't hurt. And then I'd have the drink, and then I would go on and binge, and then I'd end up back in jail. And then I'd get out and think, oh, a drink wouldn't hurt. And then I'd end up back in jail. And this continued over and over again. And you can translate.
సో ఈయన ఇప్పుడు ఏంటంటే ఆ ఊర్లో కూడా జాబులు పోతున్నాయి, కుకింగ్ జాబ్లు. దాని తర్వాత ఒకటి మల్టిపుల్ టైమ్స్ అరెస్ట్ అవుతున్నారు. అయితే ఈయన అరెస్ట్ అయినప్పుడు, జైల్లో ఉన్నప్పుడు చాలా ప్రశాంతంగా అనిపిస్తుంది. ఎందుకంటే ఒక వర్కౌట్ ఉండేది. ఆ ఆయన మతానికి సంబంధించిన గ్రంథాలు చదివారు. ఏ మీటింగులు కూడా జరిగేవి. అయితే నాకేం అర్థమయ్యేది కాదు వీళ్ళు ఏం మాట్లాడుతున్నారు. వెళ్ళేవాడిని కానీ ఏదో చేస్తున్నారులే, మనకేం అర్థం కావట్లేదు అనుకునేవాడిని. సో కాకపోతే ఏంటంటే జైలుకి వెళ్తే ప్రశాంతత వచ్చేది నాకు. సో నేను అసలు మళ్ళీ బయటికి రావటం, మళ్ళీ అరెస్ట్ అవటం, మళ్ళీ జైలుకి పోవటం, ఇలా మల్టిపుల్ టైమ్స్ జరుగుతున్నాయి అని చెప్తున్నారు. ప్లీజ్ గో.
So this pattern continues for a while, and I start getting to a point where I'm not afraid to go to jail anymore. It's becoming normal for me. I'd get arrested and go to jail, and I remember the last couple times that I had gotten arrested, my first thought wasn't about, oh no, I'm getting arrested again. It was, thank God this is finally over, because I knew when I was going to sit in jail that I wasn't going to drink, and I did not know how to stop, and I didn't know how to ask for help, and I didn't know where help was. Um, so I was grateful that I was getting locked up again, which is a weird place for someone to be, because I knew in jail I would find some type of peace again. And I didn't know where that was coming from. I didn't know that I was building some type of relationship. Well, this pattern continued so much that they ended up sending me to what they call an alcohol and drug offender work camp, which is a minimum prison. And so I go to this place, and it's like a boot camp. They're making me march and run drills and do all these exercises, and I have to go to classes and stuff. And they're trying to teach me, I'm assuming, how to be a normal member of society. And in there I did okay. I didn't have alcohol, but they had some meetings there, and they had church and things like that. So I would attend all these things, not really because I thought I needed them. It was because I just wanted something different from the daily routine stuff there. And I get out, and I'm doing okay again. I get out of this prison. I'm doing well for a while. And 5 months go by. I'm working at a restaurant. I'm doing okay. And then I meet some people who say, hey, why don't you come have a couple drinks with us? And, this is that insidious insanity that it talks about in the book, that I didn't have any mental defense against the first drink. My first thought was, yeah, I've been sober for a while. I think I can have a drink. So I did that. I had a drink with these people. And a month later, I'm getting arrested again and going back to jail. And I was so tired of it at the time that once again, I had that thought, thank God this is finally over. So I sat in jail for a while, and they gave me a chance for a treatment center. So I finally was able to seek some type of help. I know that if I would have went to treatment on my own, I would have probably left. But for the courts to have something hanging over my head, it made it a lot easier for me to stay. And you can translate that, Kartik, if you want.
Sure. So ఏమంటున్నారంటే అక్కడ కూడా ఇంకా జైలుకి వెళ్ళి బయటకు రావటం ఎంతలా అలవాటు అయిపోయిందంటే ఆయనకి భయం కూడా పోయింది, ఇంకా జైలుకి వెళ్తారా. మెల్లిగా ఇన్నిసార్లు వెళ్ళేసరికి వాళ్ళు ఏం చేశారు, ఒక స్పెషల్ జైలు ఉంటుంది త్రాగుబోతుంది, దాంట్లో వేసారు. దాంట్లో క్లాసెస్ ఉంటాయి, కమ్యూనిటీ సర్వీస్ ఉంటుంది, మిగతా అన్నీ ఉంటాయి. అంటే బాగు చేయడానికి రీహాబ్ లా అనమాట. కాబట్టి జైలు అది. దాంట్లో వేస్తే దాంట్లో ఉన్నారు, కొంచెం బెటర్ అయ్యారు. బయటకు వచ్చాక ఒక 5 నెలలు బాగున్నారు. ఆ నీట్ గా ఆయన మళ్ళీ జాబ్ వచ్చింది, కుక్ కింద చేసుకుంటున్నారు. చేసుకున్నాక అంతా బాగానే ఉంది. దాని తర్వాత ఆ ఆ, ఎవరో ఫ్రెండ్ తాగుతావా ఒక డ్రింక్ అంటే, చాలా రోజులు అయింది కదా 5 నెలలు, ఓ డ్రింక్ తాగుదాంలే అనుకుని తాగేది. తాగాక ఆ మళ్ళీ నెలకి మళ్ళీ అరెస్ట్ అయ్యారు. సో కాకపోతే ఈసారి ఏంటంటే ఒక ట్రీట్మెంట్ కి పంపించారు. ట్రీట్మెంట్ కి పంపించారు అని చెప్తున్నారు. ప్లీజ్ గో హెడ్.
So I find myself at this treatment center, and it's a year-long treatment center. And I forgot about all the misery that I kept causing, and all the misery that I felt as I was getting drunk and then getting arrested, getting drunk and getting arrested. And My first 5 months at this treatment center, I'm miserable. I keep telling myself I don't need to be there, and nothing makes sense, and I'm still feeling empty and separate, and I'm not sure if I could live this way, you know. And the book talks about being um, restless, irritable, and discontent, right? And when I break those things down, it's describing how I am sober. And that's exactly how I was at this treatment center. I was restless, irritable, and discontent. And when I think about those words, you know, I realize that if I'm restless, then I'm never comfortable. If I'm irritable, everything bothers me. And if I'm discontent, I'm dissatisfied with life. And I could not find a way to be anything different than that. And one day, someone hands me a book, and it's a book about it was a written form of some guy's speaker meeting that he had, and this guy's name is Chuck C. And the book is called A New Pair of Glasses. And as I'm reading this book, it keeps talking about a lack of unity, feeling separate from the world, being outside of the circle, not being a part of. And as I'm reading this, I keep thinking, yeah, that's exactly how I felt. That's how I was. I was seeking a solution from feeling like that. And as I'm reading this, I'm saying, yeah, that's me. That's me. That's who I was. It made me want to dive into what Chuck C was going through. You know, when in that book, he kept talking about the AA program. He kept talking about sponsorship and having a sponsor and working the program. So after I got done with the book, I went out and I sought those things. I sought somebody who could take me through the book. I sought someone who could take me through the steps. I kept putting myself in positions where I could get this thing, because I was tired of living that way, and I finally had a language for what I was going through. And I think it's such an amazing thing that at the very beginning of this big book, if we go to the preface, and on the fourth edition, it's Roman numeral 12. On the bottom, it says that if you have a drinking problem, we hope that you may pause in reading one of the 42 personal stories and think, yes, that happened to me. Or more important, yes, I felt like that. Or most important, yes, I believe this program can work for me too. So from the very beginning of this thing, it's telling us to find something we can relate to, find a relationship that helps connect us to this program so that we want to seek hope. There's another book called Alcoholics Anonymous Comes of Age, and Bill W. is quoting Sam Shoemaker, and he says, belief capitalizes off the experience of others. And what he's saying there is that everybody who came before me, who had the same hopelessness, the same separateness, the same lack of unity that I had, and they found a way out of that, gives me the belief that I could have the same thing, right? My belief capitalized off their experience. And that's what we do here in the program. Everything that we've been through, all the torment and torture, all the lives, we're able to use that experience to draw somebody in, to show them that we were the same way and that things could be different. So when we think about this, it's all about relationship. That's what draws us in here, and that's how we grow. So I started seeking these things. And you can translate, Carthen.
Sure. సో ఆయన ఏమంటున్నారంటే ఒకసారి ట్రీట్మెంట్ అయ్యాక ఏ మీటింగ్ వెళ్ళాక మెల్లిగా అర్థం అవటం మొదలు పెట్టింది అయితే నాకు అప్పుడు స్పాన్సర్ లేడు ఎవరు లేరు. నాకు ఒకళ్ళు ఏం చేశారంటే ఒక బుక్ ఇచ్చారు, చక్సీ అని. ఆయన న్యూ పేర్ ఆఫ్ గ్లాసెస్ అని ఉంటుంది ఒక పుస్తకం. ఆ పుస్తకం ఇస్తే చదువుతుంటే అచ్చు నాలాగా ఉంది. ఏంటంటే ఆయన క్లియర్ గా చెప్తాడు, ప్రాబ్లం అంతా ఏంటంటే యూనిటీ లేకపోవటం, ఇతరులతో కలవలేకపోవటం, ఇతరులతోటి సంబంధం ఏర్పరచుకోలేకపోవటం. ఎందుకంటే నేనేదో సపరేట్ కింద ఉండటం. స్వార్థంలో ఉంది. అవును, నేను ఇలాగే ఉండేవాడిని. నాకు ఇదే ప్రాబ్లం. అందరితో కలవాలంటే మంద అవసరం ఉండేది, లేకపోతే ఎవరితో కలవటం కష్టంగా ఉండేది. ఇది కరెక్ట్ గా నా గురించే మాట్లాడుతున్నాను. అప్పుడు ఇప్పుడు దాంట్లో క్లియర్ గా స్పాన్సర్ తీసుకోవాలి, ప్రోగ్రామ్ చేయాలి అని రాసి ఉంటుంది. సో నేను అదే పద్ధతిలో వెళ్తున్నప్పుడు ఆ బుక్ నుంచి కొన్ని వాక్యాలు చెప్పారు. ఏంటంటే ఆ మనం నిజంగా ఆ స్వార్థం నుంచి రావాలంటే సర్వీస్ చేయాలి, ఇతర తాగుబోతులకి నాకు అందింది పంచాలి అని చెప్పి. అప్పుడు నాకు రిలేషన్షిప్స్ ఏర్పడతాయి. ఆ ఇతరులతోటి నాకు అనుబంధాలు ఏర్పడతాయి. సో మొత్తం అంతా చూసుకుంటే ఈ ప్రోగ్రాము ఆ రిలేషన్షిప్స్ మీద ఉంటుంది, ఇతరులతో బంధాల మీద ఉంటుంది ఎక్కువ. ఏంటంటే ఇతరులకు పంచుతూ, ఇతరులకి సేవ చేస్తూ, ఇతరుల గురించి ఆలోచిస్తూ. సో ఇది ఈ బంధాలన్నీ ఆ మెయిన్గా ఇతరుల మీదే ఉంటాయి అన్నమాట. అంటే ఇతరులతోటి రిలేషన్షిప్స్ ఏర్పరచుకోవడంలోనే ఉంటుంది, మంచి రిలేషన్షిప్స్, స్వార్థం లేకుండా అని చెప్తున్నా. ప్లీజ్ గో హెడ్.
So I'm working this program. I'm learning about these steps. And, you know, I realize that I'm starting to build this relationship with God, with a higher power. And I always believed in a God. I always had a God that I grew up with. I wasn't like someone who was very spiritual or attended church, but I always believed there was something. I always had this fundamental idea of a higher power. But my idea of this higher power was that if I'm in trouble, they're going to get me out of it. If I'm in pain, they're going to stop my pain. If I need something, they're going to give me what I need. Um, if I want someone to be punished, they're going to punish them for me. So it was really just this transactional relationship. What I didn't realize at the time was my relationship with my higher power growing up carried over into my relationships with everybody else around me. So the way that I treated my higher power is the way that I treated everybody else. So whenever I was with my parents, it was always, what can you do for me? How can you help me? And I was never able to build relationships. So no wonder I felt completely separate and apart from. And like I had this lack of unity. So when I started working these steps, God kept putting me in a position with people who showed me what relationships were about, who showed me what this stuff was about. And I got my first sponsor, this guy named George, and he walked me through the steps the way that he knew how to do it. And what he showed me, it involved a lot of printouts with different columns and stuff like that. So it wasn't exactly from the book, right? Which at the time I didn't understand that there was different schools of thought when it comes to AA. And at the time, that's exactly what I needed. I needed a crash course on these steps that was going to help me find some type of solution other than alcohol for the symptoms that I had, which was a lack of unity. And as we're going through this program, I'm starting to learn about spirituality. I'm starting to learn about relationships. And I start to learn about the things that separate me from people, right? Which is what the great thing about the 4-step is it showed me what separates me from everybody else. So now I have these things. I have a blueprint on how to find peace. And after a while, George was getting pretty old. He was in his 70s at the time when I asked him to sponsor me. And he was starting to not be very active in the program anymore. And I had asked him one day, I said, hey, George, do you mind if I get another sponsor? I'd really like to continue progressing in the program and learning more. And he said, if it's going to help you continue having peace, then I'm all for it. And that's the kind of people we have in this program. There's no pride, there's no ego. It's all about love. And that's what he showed me. He showed me how to be there for people, no matter where they're at in their life, and to love them no matter what. And it was such an awesome thing that he did for me. He introduced me to this program, and I got another sponsor, and he would take me to meetings all the time, and he would show up to every time that I spoke anywhere, or any time that I had some big special event, um, anytime I was part of anything, he would want to be there, and he showed me how to be present for people, and it was pretty awesome. Um, and 5 years into the program, I get to a situation where I start to feel like I'm lost again. And you can go ahead and translate.
యా. సో స్టార్టింగ్ లో అప్పుడు స్పాన్సర్ తీసుకున్నారు. బట్ ఆయనకి ఏంటంటే ముందు దేవుడి గురించి చెప్పారు. ఎప్పుడు నాకు దేవుడి మీద నమ్మకం లేకుండా లేదండి, ఏదో ఒకటి ఉండి ఉంటుంది గ్యారంటీగానే ఉన్నది, ఏదో ఒకటి లేకుండా అయితే ఇంపాసిబుల్ అని అనుకున్నాను నేను. సో నాకు అది పెద్ద ప్రాబ్లం అవ్వలేదు. నాలుగో సోపానానికి వచ్చేసరికి ఆ, నేను అప్పుడు తీసుకున్న స్పాన్సర్ ఆయన ఏదో క్వశ్చన్లు ఇచ్చారు. అది బిగ్ బుక్ ప్రకారంగా లేదు, కాకపోతే నాకు తెలియదు అప్పుడు. నాకు అదే అనుకున్నాను, అదే చేశాను. ఓ 2-3 ఏళ్ళ తర్వాత మా స్పాన్సర్ యాక్టివ్ గా లేకుండా కొంచెం తగ్గింది యాక్టివిటీ మా స్పాన్సర్ది. ఏదో ఏదో యాక్టివిటీ తగ్గితే నాకు కూడా అంత బాగోట్లేదు, మనశ్శాంతి లేదు. అప్పుడు నేనేం చేశానంటే మా స్పాన్సర్ని అడిగాను, మరి ఇంకొకరు ఎవరినైనా తీసుకుంటేనే మంచిదా అని చెప్పి. అండ్ డెఫినెట్ గా నీకు నీకు శాంతి లభిస్తుంది అంటే డెఫినెట్ గా తీసుకో. అలాంటి వాళ్ళు ఉంటారండి మన ఫెలోషిప్ లో. ఆ, ఏంటంటే స్వార్థం, నీకు మంచి జరుగుతుందంటే తప్పకుండా చేసుకో అని చెప్పారు. దాని తర్వాత ఆ, ఇంకొక ఆయన్ని తీసుకోవటం జరిగింది. ఆయన ఏంటి, ఆయన నీట్గా మీటింగ్లు తీసుకెళ్ళటం, బుక్ ప్రకారం తీసుకెళ్ళటం మొదలు పెట్టాడు అని చెప్తుంది. ప్లీజ్ గో హెడ్.
So I find myself 5 years into the program, and I get into this situation where I start to feel lost and separate again. And leading up to this, I'm sponsoring guys. I'm going to meetings, but my train of thought is different, right? My train of thought at this moment was, I need to sponsor guys so I can stay sober. I need to go to meetings so I can get filled up spiritually. So even though I was working a program of Alcoholics Anonymous, I was still making everything all about me. It was all about what I could get out of this thing, how I could get something and get filled up. And I didn't realize I was doing that. So whenever something bad happened, I started to feel lost and empty. And what the bad thing was I was 5 years sober. I had just spent my entire life destroying everything my family did for me and how they loved me. And 5 years in, I'm starting to build my relationships back with my family, and especially with my dad. Right? He was gone a lot working when I was younger, and I used that against him. I manipulated him into feeling bad for not being around for me as much as I thought he should be, instead of thanking him for always putting food on the table and always making sure I had clothing and everything like that. So 5 years in, we're building this amazing relationship, and my dad gets diagnosed with um, stage 4 cancer. He had a lung cancer, and he got diagnosed in April of 22, and they told him he'd have 4 to 6 months to live. And if he decided to do chemotherapy, then he could live for a year. And he decided he didn't want to do that. He didn't want to be sick the entire time. So he opted to just do radiation to minimize the pain. And he decided that that's the way he wanted to go. And we respected it and honored him. And I got to be there beside him every day when he went to radiation. I got to be there with him the entire time. And then he passed away. And for a very short period of time, I was making his death all about me. I didn't understand that he had just went these 6 months, and who knows however long before that, suffering, in complete pain. And now he was peaceful, and he's at peace. And if I believed in a higher power and that he was right with that higher power, then that's where he's at. So, you know, someday I want to be at home with my higher power, and my dad beat me there. So all these things really point to he's at peace, and he's got a wonderful thing going. But for some reason, I was trying to make it about me. So I started to feel empty and separate. And you can translate, pardon me.
సో ఇలా 5 సంవత్సరాలు ప్రాక్టీస్ చేసుకుంటూ వెళ్ళాక ఆ, మెల్లిగా రిలేషన్స్ అన్ని పెరుగుతున్నాయి తప్ప మా నాన్నగారి మీద మటుకు రిజల్ట్మెంట్స్ ఉంటున్నాయి. ఆ, సో మొత్తానికి ఆయన క్యాన్సర్ వచ్చింది పాపం, స్టేజ్ 4 క్యాన్సర్. ఇంకా 6 నెలలు బతుకుతారో సంవత్సరం బతుకుతారో అన్నారు. నేను వెళ్ళి ఆయన దగ్గరికి వెళ్ళి ఆయన చూసుకోవటం జరిగింది. ఆయన పోయాక ఏంటంటే ఆయన శుభ్రంగా ఆయన హయ్యర్ పవర్ దగ్గరికి వెళ్ళారు పీస్ఫుల్ గా. నేను కూడా ఏదో ఒక రోజు నా హయ్యర్ పవర్ దగ్గరికి వెళ్ళాల్సిందే, నాకంటే ముందు వెళ్ళేది అంతే. సో అలా ఆలోచించడం మానేసి ఇదంతా ఆయన ఆయన బాగానే ఉన్నారు. బేసిక్ గా నా గురించి నేను చేసుకున్నాను, ఇదేదో ఎంటీ అయిపోయినట్టు నాకు. ఆ, ఆ, నేను నాలో ఏదో వెలుతున్నట్టు, ఇదంతా నా గురించి చేసుకున్నాను అని చెప్తున్నారు. ప్లీజ్ గో.
So my dad ends up passing away in October of 22. Um, and I'm starting to feel a little empty and separate again. And luckily, I've been indoctrinated into this amazing program of Alcoholics Anonymous, full of a fellowship of people who absolutely love one another. And so as I'm going through this, they're supporting me. They're always showing up, calling me all the time, helping me through everything. Um, so the thought of drinking never even crossed my mind at this time, right? It was just completely an emptiness and lost feeling. And I go to this thing called the Winter Conference in January. It's in Claremore, Oklahoma. And as I'm sitting there listening to this speaker, he's talking about this profound idea of going through the big book. And whenever it tells us to do something, we do it. We don't use pamphlets. We don't use printouts or anything. Everything that we do when we do the steps is directly from the book. And I thought, wow, that seems like a pretty cool way to do it, just from the book, right? And so it plants a seed in my head that I want to start doing that. So I start sponsoring guys by reading through the book with them. We're taking turns. And when it tells us to do something, we're doing it. But I'm not being very effective, right? Because I'm trying to pass on an experience I've never had before. I didn't have it. I didn't learn the steps that way. So I'm trying to do this thing that I don't understand. And a few months go by, and I'm not being very effective as a sponsor. And the whole time I'm still feeling a little bit lost and empty because I'm still trying to make everything about me. Like I'm doing this stuff so that I could be okay, so that I can be well. And there's this thing called Founders Day on June 10th. It was the day that Bill W. carried the message to Dr. Bob. And that's the founding of Alcoholics Anonymous. And it's not the day Bill W. got sober, right? Because Bill W. got sober in December of 34, but June 10th of 35, he carries the message to Dr. Bob, and all of a sudden, Alcoholics Anonymous is born. So that's Founders Day. And on Founders Day, we had a workshop at my home group, and this guy named Josh A., who I believe spoke here for this group a few weeks ago, he came and spoke at my home group for this workshop, and he was talking about taking people through the book and qualifying them. And when the book tells you to do something, we do it. So that's what he showed me. And well, that's what he talked about. And afterwards, I asked him, I said, hey, do you think you can walk me through the book like that? I felt convicted to ask him. So I did. And he said, yeah, let's do a meeting first. So we set up a meeting, and he called me and we talked, and he said, yeah, I think I'll work with you. But before he talked, I kept thinking in my head, this guy qualifies. He'll tell me if he doesn't think I'm an alcoholic. He won't tell me if I am, but he'll tell me if he doesn't think I'm an alcoholic. So my first thought in my head is, maybe he's going to tell me I'm not an alcoholic and I don't have to come back. So that's how sick I was. 5 years sober, working Alcoholics Anonymous, going to meetings, sponsoring guys. And my first thought was that maybe this guy's going to tell me I'm not an alcoholic, right? So we do our first meeting, and he says, yeah, I'm going to work with you. And I said, Josh, man, I was really, really hoping that you were going to tell me I'm not an alcoholic. And he said, no, we're going to work together. So that started this awesome relationship with who is now my sponsor. And he took me through the book a certain way that was profound to me. And it was very thorough. And he read to me he took the time out of his busy schedule to read to me. And he didn't do it where we met once a week. It was as soon as we both had an opening, we were going to meet again. So sometimes we would meet a couple times a week. Sometimes it would be just once a week. But we met as often as we possibly could. And we worked through this program together. And he kept pointing out over and over again this thing called service. He started out going over the title page with me and kept pointing out service and how these people found sobriety. And it was such a beautiful thing that I never really thought about it first. And you can translate, Karthik.
Sure. ఏంటంటే ఇది ఈయన 5 సంవత్సరాలకు కూడా అప్పుడు ఒక వర్క్ షాప్ కి వెళ్ళారు, ఈ బిగ్ బుక్ ద్వారా తీసుకెళ్లే వర్క్ షాప్. సో బిగ్ బుక్ ఏం చెప్తే అది చేస్తారు మరి చదువుకుంటూ వెళ్ళి లైన్ బై లైన్. ఇదేదో బాగుంది, ఇది చాలా బాగుంది అని చెప్పి ఈయన స్పాన్సర్ కూడా అలా చేయడానికి ప్రయత్నించాడు, కానీ అలా ఈయన దగ్గర లేదు అది ఇవ్వడానికి. సో 5 ఏళ్ల సొబ్రైటీకి మొన్న జాష్ అని చెప్పి ఆయన హోమ్ గ్రూప్ వచ్చి ఈ వర్క్ షాప్ గురించి మాట్లాడి అదే ఇలాంటి ఇలాంటి వర్క్ షాప్ గురించి మాట్లాడాడు. ఇలాగ ఫస్ట్ మీరు క్వాలిఫై చేయాలి, ఆడు తాగుబోతూ కాదు, తాగుబోతూ అంటే అవునా అని మనం చెప్పం కదా, కాదంటే కాదని చెప్పచ్చు. కాకపోతే దాని తర్వాత బుక్ ద్వారా తీసుకెళ్తారు, బుక్ ఏం చెప్తే అది చేస్తారు, అంతే, ఇంకేం కాదు. సో అలాగా తీసుకెళ్తాం అంటే, సో ఏంటి సరే ఈ జాష్ని నేను స్పాన్సర్గా తీసుకుని వర్క్ షాప్ లో చేద్దాం అంటే, సరే నేను 5 ఏళ్ల సోబ్రైటీకి స్పాన్సీలు ఉండి మీటింగ్లు ఎన్ని చేస్తూ నా ఆలోచన ఏమొచ్చింది, ఈ జాష్ అన్నాడు పోనీ నేను తాగుబోతు కాదని చెప్తాడేమో అని, ఇంక మళ్ళీ రావక్కర్లేదేమో అని చెప్పి ఆ ఇలాంటి ఆలోచన వచ్చింది. ఆ ఆలోచన వచ్చినప్పుడు నేను జాష్కి అదే చెప్పాను. జాష్ నవ్వుకుని లేదు లేదులే, మన ఇద్దరం కలిపి పని చేద్దాం, తాగుబోతు కాకుండా ఏం లేవు అని చెప్పి బుక్ ద్వారా తీసుకెళ్ళటం జరిగింది.
So, that first meeting I had with Josh, the reason he qualified me wasn't because, like he was the all sayer of who belongs in Alcoholics Anonymous. It was because he wanted to make sure I was in the right room, because like when I had that experience reading A New Pair of Glasses and thinking, yeah, that's me, that's my life. That relationship of someone understanding exactly what we felt and what we've gone through is what draws them in and could potentially put them on a path where they find a relationship with a higher power that can restore sanity and save their life. And if we're putting people in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous who are not alcoholics, they're not going to be able to carry out our primary purpose, which is carrying the message, because they won't understand the message, right? So we're putting people in a position where it could be fatal. So when he explained that to me, I understood it at that time. Like, okay, well, that helps me be of service to others, because if I do have someone who's completely just a drug addict, then I can get them to the right rooms, right, where they can be of maximum service to them. So it was a huge, profound thing that he was helping me break down the barriers of what we hear in meetings and then what actually the literature says. And it's such a beautiful thing, And as we're going through this, he keeps pointing out all these things about service, And he says on page 14 at the very bottom of the 4th edition of the Big Book, it says, "For if an alcoholic fails to perfect and enlarge his spiritual life through work and self-sacrifice for others, he will not survive the certain trials and low spots ahead." So me serving other people perfects and enlarges my spiritual life. And as a result of service, I'm going to survive low spots and trials ahead, the certain ones, which means they're going to happen. But I'm not focusing on that. I'm not focusing on the me part of it. I'm focusing on the service part of it. And as a result, the me part's taken care of. And I never understood that for a long time. Like I said, that first 5 years of being in the program, I kept thinking about, I'm doing this so I can be okay. I'm doing this for me. I'm doing this so I can get filled up spiritually. I'm doing this. And when Josh took me through the program, he kept pointing out about working with others, about being of service. And I had that profound thought that this thing's all about love and helping others, right? Not for the sole purpose that I'm going to get something out of it. It's the sole purpose of being of service. And as a result, I'm going to be taken care of. And it completely changed the way I thought. So when I started going to meetings, I started thinking about, who can I help in here? Who can I help walk through the book? Who can I help make coffee for? Who can I help put chairs up for? How can I be of service? And as a result of that, all my needs were taken care of. And I started praying a different way. I started praying about how I can be of service and how can I do thy will and how can I be there and be present. And my relationship with my higher power started to transform. And then as a result, my relationship with everyone around me started to transform. So I wasn't thinking about what I could get out of them. I started thinking about what I could give to them. And as a result, my needs were always taken care of. And I know that when I'm having a bad day and everything's falling apart, it's because I'm being selfish in some way or another, right? And that's what this book has taught me. So now I have a way of identifying what's making me feel separate and left out and apart from. And I can reel myself back in and find that peace that I had been searching for my entire life. This book gave me a blueprint, and the fellowship gave me a blueprint on how I can constantly find that peace over and over again every day. And it's such a beautiful thing to be walked through this program and see that, I don't have to be miserable anymore. And it restored choice in my life. And you can translate, Karthik.
Yeah. సో ఏంటంటే ముందు మామూలుగా సర్వీస్ చేసేటప్పుడు నా కోసం ఏది చేసినా నా కోసం చేశాను. ఇప్పుడు ఆ బిగ్ బుక్ లో ఏంటంటే నేను ఎప్పుడైతే ఆధ్యాత్మికత పెంచుకోనో లేకపోతే ఇతరుల గురించి ఆలోచించడం అంటే అప్పుడు రేపు పొద్దున్న ఏదో ఒకటి కష్టం రావచ్చు. లో స్పాట్స్ అంటారు. బాగుండని రోజులు చాలా బాగుంటుందండి. ఇలా లో స్పాట్స్ వచ్చినప్పుడు తట్టుకునేలాగా ఉండాలి అంటే ఇది సో ఎనీవే సో ఇలాగా తట్టుకునేలా ఉండాలి అంటే మెయిన్ గా మనం ఆధ్యాత్మికంగా పెరగాలి, ప్లస్ ఇతరులకి సేవ చేయాలి. నేను ఎప్పుడు వెళ్ళినా సరే ఇతరులకి సేవలో వెళ్తుంటే ఎప్పుడు నాకేం వస్తుంది, నా కోసం చేస్తున్నాను, నా రికవరీ కోసం చేస్తున్నాను అంటూ వెళ్ళాను. ఇప్పుడు ఇప్పుడు వెళ్తున్నప్పుడు నాకేం అక్కర్లేదు, నేను ఇతరులకు ఎలా ఉపయోగపడాలి. నా ప్రార్థనలు కూడా మారినాయి. నాకు కాదు, ఇప్పుడు ఇతరులకు ఎలా ఉపయోగపడాలి ఆ రోజు అంటూ మొదలైంది. సో ఏంటంటే అది కంప్లీట్ గా నన్ను మార్చింది. ఈ రకమైన ఆలోచనతోటి నేను ఈరోజు ప్రశాంతంగానే సఫరింగ్ లేకుండా ఉండగలుగుతున్నా అని చెప్తున్నారు. ప్లీజ్ గో హెడ్.
So, I love the stories on the back of the book. I quote them just as much as I quote the rest of the book because it gave me a language to things that I didn't understand at the time. So I adopt other people's experiences to help me understand my experience sometimes. Saying that, on page 551 of the fourth edition, there's a story called Free from Bondage. And this person's talking about problems in their life. And they have this amazing saying in there. It says, "For the only problems I have are those I create when I break out in a rash of self-will." And that described most of my life. when I heard that. But then getting into this program and God putting me in positions to where I could meet the right people who could show me how to be there for people no matter what state they're in, who could show me how to be present for people and always show up like my other sponsors did, and who can show me how to be of service and practice love like Joss has shown me. Um, I realize that I have less problems today. And it's such a beautiful thing that I get to experience this now. Um, you know, it really is all about relationship and service. And I have to practice that relationship, right? I have to every day I have to nurture that relationship with my higher power. Because when I think about it, like my higher power, he's if I'm going to have a relationship with my higher power, that means I have to constantly be present and I have to constantly communicate, right? And it's just like anybody else in my life. If I want to have a relationship with my wife, then I need to be present and I need to communicate with her. And when I stop doing those things, I don't have a relationship with my wife anymore. And if I don't have a relationship with my wife anymore, there's a possibility that I'm not going to have half my stuff anymore either. So I need to nurture these relationships. And, my relationship that I have with my higher power is completely carried over. And it's because of people like you all in the fellowship who has allowed me to capitalize off of your experience so that I could have a belief that my life could be different. It has propelled me into this fourth dimension of spirituality that has completely fulfilled my life. And for that, I'm always going to be grateful. I'm very grateful for all the members of this room for allowing me to come speak. And I think I'm going to end there right now. So thank you all very much.
యా సో ఏంటంటే మొత్తానికి తిరిగి చూసుకుంటే ఈరోజు ఇవన్నీ ఇతరులకి సేవ చేస్తుంటే నా కోసం కాకుండా వాళ్ళ కోసం చేస్తుంటే ఆహా, అంటే నా గురించి ఆలోచించకుండా అప్పుడు నా జీవితంలో చాలా వరకు నాకు పెద్ద ప్రాబ్లమ్స్ లేవు. జీవితం సాఫీగానే వెళ్ళిపోతుంది. ఆ, ఆ, అలాగే ఈ రిలేషన్ ఇదంతా చూసుకుంటే నేను మానవ సంబంధాలు, సేవ ఈ రెండాటిలోనే పెడతాను. ఎలా ఉన్నాయి రిలేషన్స్? ఇప్పుడు మా స్పాన్సర్ జాష్ లాగా నేను కూడా ప్రేమ చూపించి స్పాన్సర్షిప్ చేయగలిగితే, ఆ, ఆ, ఆయనలాగా నేను చేయగలిగితే, సో ఇతరులకి సేవ చేసుకుంటూ వెళ్ళిపోయి మానవ సంబంధాలు పెంచుకుంటూ వెళ్ళిపోతే ఆ, అసలు నా గురించి నేను ఆలోచించే టైమే ఉండదు. నా నుంచి బయటకు వస్తా బేసిక్గా. అప్పుడు నాకు పెద్దగా కష్టాలు ఏం లేవండి. ఇప్పుడు సాఫీగా సాగుతుంది జీవితం అని చెప్తూ సెలవు తీసుకుంటున్నారు. థ్యాంక్ యూ జేమ్స్ ఫర్ ద వండర్ఫుల్ షేరింగ్. Let me stop the recording and start our Q&A session.